Hey, welcome back to video 2 for week 8. So what I want to do here in this video is, now that we've looked at how to record with our equipment, how to set that up, we're going to record our own samples here, and then what I'm going to do is kind of piece it together in a little mini track. So I'm not going to make a complete track from scratch. I'm just going to make a short little sample of a track using only my own sounds. So any sounds that I make either with an instrument or my voice, or any other objects that I've got laying around here, I'm going to use my microphone, record them in, and then only use those sounds to make a track instead of grabbing samples from Splice or Ableton. So I want to do this just so you guys can see what's actually possible and how far you can really push your own sounds. And just to show you how creative you can actually get with twisting those recorded sounds into samples. Because you can really push them quite far, and then they don't even sound like the original sample, and you can get some really cool and unexpected outcomes from that. First of all, I'm just going to delete these two MIDI tracks here since we're not using those. I'm just going to be using the audio tracks to begin with. Now, I mentioned in the last video that you'll notice when I speak the two lights up, so that means my mic's working. And what I'm going to do is just show you quickly how to record, and then I'm going to record some sounds. So I like to record in the arrangement view just so I can see what's going on as I'm recording. And that way, if you're recording in the arrangement view, you can actually see the timeline and you can actually see where the waveform spikes are. So to record in Ableton, once you've got all your preferences all set up like I showed in the last video, and you can see that your microphone's working and it's set to external in on an audio track, an empty audio track, what we can do is you can either turn on in to enable the monitoring. So if you want to hear yourself, you can turn this on. But make sure if you do this that you don't have your speakers loud or that you're wearing headphones. Otherwise you're going to get feedback that comes out of the speakers and then back into the microphone again, and you don't want that. So if you want to monitor yourself, set that to in. Otherwise, just leave it off. And depending on the delay and how good your equipment is, that's going to determine how much delay there is, when you record and when you monitor. So if I go to my preferences again, as we head back over to the audio category, down here I've got latency. So at the moment mine is quite high. So we can lower this by actually reducing our buffer size. So at the moment I'm on 512 samples. If I turn this to 128, now you can see it's quite decent. So now I'm sitting around 7 milliseconds of latency. So you're not really going to notice too much under, that 5 to 7 mark. It's going to be quite instant. Whereas if I had this set to, let's say here, and I had 44 milliseconds of latency, you're going to notice that a lot. So if you have a beat that's happening in the background here and you try and record over it, let's say with MIDI or whatever, or with your microphone, it's going to be out of time because there's just too much latency. So you're going to have to go back in and counter that by moving your track back. I do suggest you reduce the buffer size if you're recording. Just be aware when you reduce this buffer size, it's going to put more load on your CPU, on your computer. So if you start to have too many tracks in here, and this buffer size, sorry, let's bring it up again, and this buffer size is really low, so I wouldn't go down here, because after about 5 to 6 tracks, it's going to start distorting and clipping, and Ableton's going to start freaking out, so you have to increase this. So if you start to hear clipping in your track and it's kind of crackling and skipping a bit, you have to increase your buffer size to accommodate that, just so it puts less load on your computer. But that all depends on your hardware as to how far you can push this. So if you're on a really fast computer with a modern CPU, you'll be able to sit on 128 for quite a while, and your project can get quite big and you'll still be fine. But especially older computers, you might have to bump this up if you start to hear crackling and just some weird stuff going on in Ableton. And you can also check this up here, which shows the actual CPU load. If this starts maxing out, I think it turns red. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I think it starts to turn yellow and red, and that kind of warns you, and you'll see this number go up as well. See it right now, I've got nothing in the project, so I'm sitting at 1% CPU load. If you start to see that creep up towards the 70, 80 mark, you might want to think about increasing that buffer size. So I'll set mine to 128. That gives me 7 milliseconds, which is fine. And then I'm just going to give you a couple examples here, and then I'll record my own stuff, and then we'll come back to actually putting it together into a track. So when you're ready to record in Ableton, you've got it all set up. You've checked that latency as well. All you have to do is arm the audio track. So whatever track you have armed, that's what's going to record. So for arm track 1, I'll be recording on this track, and I'll be recording whichever input I have selected here. So this would be my instrument input, which I'll give an example of in a second as well. But for now, I'm going to arm this audio track, which has my microphone. And I'm just going to give you a quick run through of that. So I'm going to hit, once you're ready, you just hit record. That'll give you the countdown. And then it will start recording, and you'll see the waveform appear. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I've recorded my little test in there along with some clapping. Sorry if that clapping was a bit loud. I started clipping a bit because I haven't got my microphone set up for loud noises. It's meant for my voice. But we'll just play this back. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. And there you go. You got your recorded sound in Ableton. So now you can turn this into anything you want. Because it's an audio file in here now, we can put it in a simpler, we can add effects to it, we can warp it, distort it, pitch it, whatever we want to do. So if you're a vocalist and you want to sing on a track, what you can do is have the backing track up here, your instrumental going, or if you've already made the instrumental in Ableton, you can just play it along. If you want to stay in time, you can put the metronome on as well. So that way when you record, you can hear the metronome. So I'm just going to hit record after this part here. So I was just clapping in time with the metronome there as well as I could. So if we play this back with the metronome on. Because my latency is quite low at that 7 millisecond mark, I managed to get those all pretty much on the beat. Just as an example, I'm going to go back into my preferences. I'm going to set this at 1024. Testing. So we have quite a bit of latency now. I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to have my metronome on, and I'm going to record and try and clap in time once again. All right, let's look at the timing. Okay, so you can see it is completely off. Even though I was clapping in time in my ears because of what I was hearing through the metronome, because there's that much latency going through Ableton now, my recording is way off. Whereas you look at these, because I had my latency down, it was all in time with the beat, and you can see that on the grid. Whereas this, I'm pretty much that delayed that I'm on the off beat. So I'm about halfway between each beat. And yeah, something to keep in mind is this latency. Just keep an eye on it. Try not to have it too high. Usually, more often than not, the better the equipment, the lower the latency will be. So that comes down to your computer, your CPU, how fast your CPU is, and also, more importantly, the audio interface if you're using one. Okay, I'm just going to delete these sounds that I made here. So in number 1, in the input 1, I have my guitar plugged in now. If you remember in the last video, I had that little instrument port on the front of my audio interface with the guitar symbol. I've set that up so it's input 1 in Ableton. So now my guitar is on input 1. So I'm just going to record a few things here just to show you that as well. Okay, so I have to arm the track 1. Or if you want to record on this track, you can just change this input to 1 as well. But I'm going to keep them separately so that I have my microphone recordings down here and my instrument up here. So I'll make sure this one's armed instead. And then I'm just going to hit record and play a few chords. Okay, just recorded a few chords there, so let's see what that sounds like. Might be a bit quiet, because usually you have to add a little bit of processing to get it up to scratch. So I'm just going to use a utility for now. I'm just going to put up the gain. Okay, so you should be able to hear that a bit better now. Alright, and it is as simple as that to record instruments in Ableton. Just make sure you have your microphone set up properly, or your inputs set up properly. And then all you have to do is arm the track and hit record up here, and then you can just record straight into the timeline. Alright, what I'm going to do now is just record a few samples, just get enough so that I have something to work with, and then I'm going to start twisting them and morphing them to show you how I would make a track out of them. So we'll come back once I have that. Okay, I went ahead and recorded some sounds, so I used my guitar and also just some things I had laying around the desk here. I had like a tin and a pen, and then just a remote, which I was just clicking against something else, and then I used some sounds in my voice as well. So I'll just record a little bit of guitar, just some simple plucks. Chords there, and then some sounds with my voice to start, I think it was. Yep. Some claps, different types of claps. This was just using that pen. Hitting that tin. That was the pen hitting against something else. Just some more clicking. And then I was just rustling up some little plastic bag I had here. So what we're going to do is take all these random sounds and actually put them in sampler, or put them in simpler, sorry. Do some processing on them, and actually turn this into a proper track. I was going to do this all as one video, but what I might actually do is split this up here, and instead of trying to do all the processing in here, what I might get you guys to do is just to record some sounds exactly like I have. Again, doesn't matter if you don't have a proper microphone or if you don't have an instrument. You can just use your laptop mic or whatever you're on, your desktop, headset, like I was saying. Record some sounds, doesn't matter how bad quality they are. We just want to do it for the sake of experience and, you know, being able to enjoy and join in on this exercise. So make a few random sounds. I'm sure you've got plenty of stuff around on your desk that would make interesting noises. Some mugs, glasses. You can even use some pots and pans if you want. But try and think of the different drum sounds. So in all my recordings, I recorded a kick, like I got the clap, and then I'd use those little pen clicks for a hi-hat or something. So just think of the drum sounds and ways that you can make those sounds. And if you are a guitarist or a vocalist, feel free to do some singing if you want, or some rapping. Whatever you want to do, we're just going to have a lot of fun with this exercise. If you're a drummer, get those drums out. If you play the piano, or you have a different piano that you can plug in, you can use that. Obviously there's one built in Ableton as well. But we don't want to use actual Ableton plugins. We want to use all our own recorded sounds. So it's going to be 100% original music. So yeah, record all those sounds. Once you got all that done, we'll come back in the next video and we'll put this together into a track.